Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us for our virtual open enrollment seminar. At this time, we will go over Lincoln Financial Group short-term and long-term disability plans. Before we get started, I would like to brief everyone on a couple of housekeeping items. All attendees are muted and will remain muted throughout the presentation. And if you have a question, please type it in the chat box located on the right-hand side of the presentation screen. Be informed that any question that you type in that chat box, everyone attending the session will see your question and your name. So if you have a question that is sensitive or confidential in nature, we highly recommend that you reach out to the County Benefits Division or your benefits ambassador within your department. Lastly, today's seminar is being recorded. A copy will be posted on the Benefits Open Enrollment website. At this time, I will turn it over to our presenter, Marianne Young.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining today. I'm happy to have you here with me to talk a little bit about the disability benefits offered by Lincoln Financial for the County of San Diego. Hopefully, everyone can see my screen today, and we can get started. So again, I am Marianne Young. I am with Lincoln Financial, and I am the Senior Account Director here, assigned to the County of San Diego. So I am responsible for our overall relationship and to help your benefits and HR team to make sure that all the questions that come their way are being answered and that we're able to help with any questions or issues that may arise for you as you engage with Lincoln Financial. So today we're going to be talking about your 2025 benefits information, specifically around the disability offerings and the paid family leave that is included with that. So talking about our disability programs, essentially these are cash benefits that are payable in the event that you become disabled either due to injury, illness, a surgery, or a childbirth or pregnancy, where you are unable to work due to that disability, and you just need some additional support while you're recovering. So that's what those cash benefits come into play. The money is paid directly to you for a qualified approved disability, and that money can be used for pretty much whatever you need it for. So that can go to your monthly bills and expenses, help with any kind of medical bills, additional childcare, utilities, rent or mortgage, things like that. So it's a cash benefit paid out in the event of a disability that prevents you from being able to work and earn your regular income. So with Lincoln, we have kind of two different disability programs that we're going to be talking through, one for two separate groups of employees. So the first group we'll talk about is those employees who pay into the California State Disability Plan. So if you're eligible and pay into the California State Disability Plan, there are two different disability options that are available to you. One is for LTD and the other is for short-term disability, STD. Those are both called voluntary plans, which means that they are optional for you to enroll in, and they would be paid by you as the employee. The second group of benefits we'll be speaking to are for those employees who do not pay into the California State Disability Plan. And for you, we are proud to announce that we are going to be administering your LTD plan. That's new for Lincoln this year. It's not a new benefit, just a new carrier. So that will be new in 2025, and we'll talk through that in a little bit more detail. But there's also a voluntary short-term disability plan that's available to you. Again, those voluntary plans are optional and would be paid by you as the employee should you elect to participate in those. And there are three different plan options that are available for you to select from, and we'll go through that in just a bit as we dive into more details. So first is group we'll talk about or speak to are for those employees who do pay into the California State Disability Plan. Again, there are two voluntary options available, one for LTD and one for STD. Speaking about the long-term disability first, again, this is a voluntary LTD plan, meaning that employees pay for the cost of the coverage. And the benefit payments, so should you file for a claim and receive benefit payments under the voluntary long-term disability plan, those payments are not subject to any tax. It's a 60% benefit to a $5,000 a month maximum. There is a 180-day elimination period, so that means you have to be disabled for at least 180 days before any benefits are payable under the long-term disability. And your monthly minimum payment is $100. Down below, you can see your maximum pay period. So for all long-term disability claims, we are going to be reviewing your medical documentation that supports your claim to determine how long you are eligible and meet the definition for disability. But there are some timeframes based on age in the event that, let's say that medical documentation indicates that you are disabled indefinitely. There are some maximum payment periods. So those would depend and are shown here in the bottom left quadrant. In the event that you are become disabled under the age of 60, your benefits would be payable to age 65. Again, as long as your medical documentation supports your disability. But if you're over the age of 60, your benefit period will be based on the number of months, depending on the date, your age on your date of disability. So that's what your maximum benefit period looks like. There are, however, a couple of different types of claims that are limited to how long those claims will be payable. And those are your mental nervous related claims, any claims related to substance abuse, or a self-reported illness, things like migraines, things like that, where there's not necessarily a specific like diagnosis or test. Those are called self-reported type illnesses. And those also will have a limited 24-month maximum payment duration for those claims. There is also a pre-existing limitation. So what this means is that no benefits are going to be paid out for the long-term disability in the event that we determine it is a pre-existing condition. So if you are enrolling, or if you are signing up for the voluntary LTD for the first time for January 2025, any claims that we receive from you for the first 12 months after your initial enrollment will be reviewed to determine if that particular disability was considered a pre-existing condition. And we will look at your 6 months. So that would be like July 1st through December 31st. We would look through your medical records of those first 6 months just prior to your effective date to determine if you had received any treatment, a diagnosis, or if there were any type of indicators that that condition was pre-existing before your effective date. Now, if you've been enrolled in the voluntary LTD with Lincoln for the last year and re-enroll again come January, you would have already met that pre-existing condition. So that only applies to the first 12 months of your first year enrolled in that particular line of coverage with Lincoln. Once you've been enrolled for more than 12 months, then that pre-existing limitation no longer applies, and that additional review wouldn't be taken into account. Last but not least, we have the own-off period. So this is how we define disability. We are taking a look at your ability to work in your own occupation. So for the first 24 months of your long-term disability, if you're receiving payment and you're out on long-term disability because you're unable to work your own occupation, after 24 months of being out, we will then reevaluate your claim to determine whether you are able to work in any occupation. So after 24 months, you go from your own your own occupation definition of disability to any occupation definition of disability. So those are just a couple of key things to know about the long-term disability plan to help you make your decision on whether you want to enroll in that coverage. Next, also for those employees who pay into the California Short-Term Disability Plan, we also offer a voluntary short-term disability plan that is in addition to any benefit that you would receive from the state. So this is paid again by the employee. If you were to enroll, you would be able to get an additional 25% of your weekly salary up to $1,000 each week. Those benefits, again, are not subject to tax once they're paid out. The longest duration you would be able to be out on one claim is 24 weeks. Again, this is based, and maybe shorter, based on the medical documentation that's provided to support your claim. So let's say you go out on a simple surgery and your doctor indicates that your recovery time would only be, let's say, 6 weeks, then your benefit would end after those 6 weeks. You would not get the full 24 weeks. But let's say you go in for a more complex surgery and your doctor indicates that you are going to be out for 24 weeks for recovery, then your benefit duration would pay out for that full 24 weeks. Again, it would always be based on the medical information provided by your physician in support of your claim. Your benefit elimination period. So this is how long you need to be disabled before any kind of claim will be payable under your short-term disability, and that's 14 calendar days. So once you are disabled and unable to work, your benefits for the short-term disability would be payable after 14 calendar days. And similarly to the long-term disability, there's also a pre-existing exclusion for newly enrolled members where your benefits, any claim received within the first 12 months of your enrollment, your initial enrollment or your first time enrolling, we will be looking at the 3 months prior to your initial effective date to determine whether or not your claim is related to a pre-existing condition. So this is really important, especially to those who maybe are pregnant. Let's say they're pregnant and they expect to be delivering in March, and so they're going in and enrolling next week in the voluntary short-term disability coverage for the first time. That will be effective in January. Since that delivery date is estimated or expected to be in March, that falls into the first 12 months of your benefit eligibility. And so we would then be taking a look at your medical records to determine whether you received any kind of treatment the 3 months prior for that same condition, in which point we would determine that your that particular example of a pregnancy claim would be considered a pre-existing condition and would be not be eligible for benefits that first for that time frame. So again, this only applies to those who would be newly enrolling in the month of, newly enrolling this upcoming week for the next plan year of 2025. One thing to keep in mind about the two disability plans that we just went through is that they are portable. What that means is that in the event that your employment terminates with County of San Diego, you would be able to take these benefits with you. Like, let's say you decide to go work somewhere else, or employment just ends, we would then give you the opportunity to what we call port your coverage into an individual plan, and you would then be able to take that coverage with you after your employment ends at the County of San Diego. So with that, I'm going to pause. I believe we have someone monitoring the chat. I just wanted to check in to see if there were any questions yet that have come in regarding the benefits we just discussed for those employees who pay into the California short-term disability. We have someone monitoring the chat. I just wanted to make sure.
Hi, Marianne. Nidra here. It looks like there are a few questions that have come through. Let's see. For the people who pay into it, I'm assuming SDI, is there a pre-existing condition limitation?
Yes. So if you pay into the California SDI, there is a pre-existing condition limitation on the LTD. We will do a 6-month look back for any claims we receive in the first year, the first 12 months of you being enrolled in the plan for the first time. And then on the voluntary short-term disability, there is a 312 pre-existing exclusion, and that means we will be taking a 3-month look back for any disability claims we receive within your first 12 months of enrollment.
Okay, excellent. Another great question has come through the chat. Can county employees opt out of paying California SDI? And I
So
believe that's a no, correct?
that
Because
is a
it's a
no,
required
yeah.
tax. Yeah, it's a California law for that deduction. So I'm happy to answer that one.
Thank you.
Nitra, this is Katie, and I'm just going to pop in on that. Um, Employees pay into SDI based on job classification. So it is based on the job that you're in, but correct, there is no opt-in or out. If you change jobs, that may change based on your new job classification.
Thanks for clarifying, Katie.
No problem. And I am going to take over for Nidra looking at the questions in chat. I think I answered most of them, except we have one question, Marianne, I was hoping you could go over. If I'm signed up currently with a 7-week, and this may be for the next section, so let me know. If I am signed up currently with a 7-week STD plan and I end up having a C-section in December and I enroll myself during open enrollment for the 12-week plan, as of January, can I use the 7 weeks only or can I use the 8 weeks? I think that's referring to 12 weeks. So basically, if I'm in the 7-week plan in 2024, I deliver in December, but I change my STD plan in January, which plan applies?
So great question. And interestingly enough, for this particular, and it is for the next section, so we'll go into it in more detail. But in that particular instance, it's and similarly to what we were just talking about on the short-term disability. So whether you're enrolled in the 7-week plan or the 12-week plan, that doesn't mean you're going to get that 7-week time off or that disability paid out for those entire 7 weeks or entire 12 weeks. It really is going to depend on your disability. So we actually have a slide that will go through that in just a few minutes. So if we can table that question and come back to it, hopefully that's okay.
Perfect. Thank you, Marianne. And I see we have a hand raised. I think it's Taylor Morrison.
I believe their mics
Are they
are
muted?
muted.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. Taylor, if you can put your question into chat, although based on what you said previously, I think that It sounds like you're enrolled in the non-SDI plans.
Yep.
So
I agree. Yep. It gets a little difficult because we do have the two different groups that we're addressing. So the first group we just reviewed are for those employees who are eligible for and pay into the California State Disability Plan. And then the next group of employees we'll talk about are those who do not. And they are the ones I think that Taylor falls under.
mm-hmm. Another question, can you please repeat the first row of slide 5 regarding mental health claims?
Sure. So mental health claims falls under a special category of, I believe this is probably what we're talking about right here under mental nervous. So there is a 24-month limit where your LTD claim would be payable for claims for specific diagnoses. So mental nervous claims or substance abuse claims, I'm sorry, substance abuse related claims, I should say, or those self-reported claims. Those have a limitation of how long those LTD benefits would be payable for those for claims under those for those particular diagnoses. Did that answer the question?
I believe so. Thank you. We have a couple more. I think this will be for me. When we look at our paycheck with which part do we know that we pay to state SDI? If you look at your paycheck in the taxes section, if you have a line that says CA and then OASDI/EE, that is the California SDI tax. So if you pay into it, that's on your paycheck. If you don't pay into it, it's not. You can also look at your benefit summaries based on your job classification, which I will put into the chat. And Taylor, I do see your question about PFL and pre-existing conditions. That will also be in the next section. So we're going to answer that soon. And Timothy, I believe you're also in talking about the county paid LTD. So I'm also going to have Marianne address that in our next section.
Awesome. We good to move on, Katie?
Yes, thank you.
Of course. So it sounds like there's a lot of questions already geared up for our next section. So I love that. There's quite a few different slides that we're going to go through in different scenarios. So again, I'm going to go through everything and then we'll open it up for questions at the end. So as those come in, please, Katie, I think if we could just hold tight until the kind of the Q&A at the end of the section, I think we'll be able to address a lot of the questions that have already come up. So for the second group of employees, these again are those employees who do not pay into the California State Disability Plan. And as Katie mentioned, this is based on your employee classification. So some employee classes do pay into the state plan and some do not. So we're speaking now about the plans that are for the employees who do not pay into the California State Disability Plan. So again, as mentioned, there is new to Lincoln, but not new to the County of San Diego, an employer paid or county paid LTD plan. This was formerly and currently with your with MetLife, that is the current carrier. Lincoln will be taking over January 1st. This is employer paid, so these are benefits that are paid by the county for employees. And there are 3 classes of eligible employees and elected officials. We'll go into that in a bit more detail. And then similar to years past, there are also 3 voluntary STD plan options with paid family leave included. So the 3 voluntary STD plan options we'll see kind of dovetail really nicely into the 3 LTD classes that are offered under the offered by the county. And so I'll do my best to show how those plans kind of marry together. So first, I'll go over the long-term disability. Here you could see the 3 different classes in which employee classifications fall under each of those classes. So the main difference between the 3 classes is really around the elimination period. So elimination period is the amount of time you need to be disabled before any benefits are payable. So for long-term disability, class 1, a person would need to be disabled for 30 days before any long-term disability benefits are payable. Under class 2, those employees need to be disabled and unable to work for 60 days before any long-term disability benefits are payable. And last but not least, class 3, those employees are required to be out of work and unable to, out on disability and unable to work for 90 days before their long-term disability benefits would be payable. To go into a little bit more detail around what those benefits look like. So again, the county pays for the coverages for these 3 classes of employees eligible for the long-term disability. It's a 2/3 plans or 66 and 2/3 plan up to the monthly benefit maximum. The elimination period, as I said, is 30, 60, or 90 days. The minimum is greater of $100 or 10% of your benefits. So there's always going to be a minimum benefit payable for an approved claim. Similar to the maximum payment period, these are for the different durations where benefits would be paid depending on the age you are on your date of disability. Also, please keep in mind that your disability period will also be reviewed based on the medical documentation provided that supports your claim. So if you're going out on LTD and the doctor indicates that you only need to be out for 7 months for your recovery and then you'd be able to return to work, that doesn't mean that you're going to be able to stay out on LTD until you're age 65, but instead that you would be expected to return to work because those benefits will only be payable until your disability ends. Similar to what we spoke to before, there are limitations for certain types of disabilities. There's a 24-month limitation for any disability related to mental nervous issues, substance abuse, or self-reported issues. There's also a pre-existing limitation. So for your, this really applies to those who are new hires at the county, not necessarily because this is an automatic benefit for all of those eligible. This pre-existing limitation really only applies to those who are new to the county for their first 12 months. So if we receive a long-term disability claim for someone who has been, who is in the county's long-term disability plan for less than 12 months, we will review that disability to determine if it's due to a pre-existing condition, and we'll do a 3-month look back in those instances. And then again, similar to before, the long-term disability coverage offered by or provided by the county has an ONOC period for the first 24 months. And then after 24 months, your disability will be evaluated on any occupation definition. So we will be looking to see after 24 months, we will be looking to see if you're able to return to work in any occupation, not just your own occupation. Switching gears, talking about your short-term disability options. Again, this is only for those employees who do not pay into the California SDI plan. You do have 3 voluntary STD options that are available to you. These really mirror the California state plan, and they're 100% paid by you as the employee. So this is an optional program. Should you elect to enroll, you would be paying for those premiums. I will just say that I'm going through the 2025 benefits today. So there are some changes that we know are happening and some changes that will possibly be happening that I'll try and highlight the best I can today. So currently, the state, are offering, matches the state's, and it's a 60% benefit up to a weekly maximum of $1,620. In 2025, that 60% is going to increase to 70% for any new disability claims on or after January 1st. So the benefit percentage will increase from 60 to 70%. And although currently the weekly maximum is 1,620, it's possible that that will increase come January 1, and that would be for any of employees who file a new claim with a date of disability on or after January 1st. The three main differences between the three plan options made available to you are your benefit durations. So these are really created to dovetail into your LTD plan. So if you fall into the class 1 on LTD, where you have a 30-day elimination period on the long-term disability benefits, then you would best benefit from the 3-week option for your benefit duration on short-term disability. What this means is that for that first 30 days of your disability, if you're enrolled in the voluntary STD, you would receive benefits for 3 weeks, for up to 3 weeks of your that first month that you are waiting for your LTD to kick in. Similarly, the 7-week option would best be served for those employees who fall under LTD class 2, who have a 60-day elimination period. So this LTD plan at 7 weeks would provide coverage during that time frame when you're waiting for your long-term disability benefits to be payable. And then last but not least, of course, is class 3 with the 90-day elimination period on the LTD. They would want to consider this third option under the voluntary STD offerings, and that is with the 12-week duration. Similar to what we've said before, just because you have a 3-week, 7-week, or 12-week maximum duration, that doesn't mean that's how long necessarily your benefits are going to be payable. We are always going to be looking at your medical documentation and what's supported based on that to determine your actual duration for a specific claim. These numbers here that we're going through, the 3 weeks, 7 weeks, or 12 weeks, is just the maximum amount that would be payable under each of those different plan options. One thing to keep in mind is that regardless of your plan option, there is a 7-day elimination period where you would need to be out and disabled for those initial 7 days before you would be eligible to receive benefit pay for any of these claims. So there's a 7-day elimination period that must be met before a claim would be payable. And that's regardless of which plan option you sign up for. There is a pre-existing condition exclusion on the STD plan. So similar to what we've talked about in the past, if you are enrolling for the first time for the 2025 plan year and you have a claim in the first 12 months of being first eligible, we are going to evaluate your claim to determine if it is due to a pre-existing condition, and that will have a 3-month look back for that pre-existing condition review. And then the highlight really of this plan, which I think was a great addition and something we added last year, is your paid family leave. So this is bundled with your short-term disability short-term disability enrollment. So if you are an employee who does not pay into the California SDI plan and you enroll in one of the 3 STD options offered by Lincoln, you will also be eligible for the paid family leave benefit that is available and is a payable benefit for those who need to take time off to care for a seriously ill family member, if you're going to be bonding with a new child, or for military exigency. It is not a medical, like additional medical leave payment. That, of course, would be your short-term disability, but this is additional benefit that's available to you in the event that you need to care for a family member or to bond with a new child. The paid family leave is also designed to mirror the California paid family leave plan. Currently, it pays at 60% to a weekly maximum of 1,620. In 2025, that benefit percentage is increasing to 70%. And although we don't know the benefit maximum yet, we do anticipate that it will increase or stay the same as 1,620 weekly maximum. We do not expect it to decrease at all. The paid family leave pays up to 8 weeks within a 12-month period. So that could be for one paid family leave. You could do 8 weeks for one leave during that time frame. Or let's say you need to take 2 or more than one and break that up into different leaves for different reasons, but the maximum you'll ever be able to receive, whether it's one leave or multiple, is an 8-week total within the 12-month period. And again, you could take those all at once, or you can take them intermittently. So for example, if you want to go out, you need to take care of a family member, a seriously ill family member, but you only need to do it, let's say, in 2-week intervals. You would be able to go out on an approved leave and just indicate that it's going to be an intermittent leave. So you're going to be taking 2 weeks at a time, maybe once every other month. And instead of having to submit a new claim for every time you go out, it's just one claim to go out for that leave, and just indicating that it would be intermittent, and you would be working with your claim specialist here at Lincoln to work out the scheduling and what you're eligible for in those instances. Voluntary STD is also portable. So in the event that your employment terminates with the county and you want to keep this coverage after you leave, your voluntary short-term disability is a benefit that you would be able to continue to pay premiums on directly to Lincoln and take that benefit with you. A little bit more detail on the paid family leave. Again, this is for those employees who enroll in the voluntary STD plans at either 3, 7, or 12-week maximum durations. There is no pre-existing condition for these paid family leaves. So where we talked about pre-existing on the short-term disability paid family leave, there is no pre-existing. So benefits are payable as soon as once you're enrolled. So if you have a qualifying event on January 1st and you happen to be newly enrolled in January 1st, then you would be eligible to take that time off and start your paid family leave. Also, there's no elimination period, so you don't need to be out for a certain amount of time before benefits are payable. Those are payable on your first day of leave. As I mentioned, you could also take your paid family leave either in a continuous time frame, so one block of time, or intermittently if that's what's best and what's needed. Covered conditions for paid family leave. So again, as I mentioned, care for a seriously ill family member, bonding with a new child, or to attend to a qualifying exigency for a family member who's in active duty. On the far right here, you see who a covered family member is. So that's a child, a parent, parent-in-law, grandparent, sibling, spouse, registered domestic partner. Again, this is a benefit that's payable to you to care for a family member. It's not a disability benefit that's payable to you for your own medical condition. One thing always good to point out that in the event that you're going out on a disability or paid family leave, between your benefits paid and any kind of additional pay you may get from the county, your earnings in combination with your benefits can never exceed 100% of your weekly earnings. So if you're using PTO or sick leave, things like that, any type of salary continuance while you're out on a paid leave or disability, you can never receive more than 100% of your regular earnings. I'm going to go into just a couple of different scenarios, and I also want to talk a little bit about what it looks like when you are submitting your claim with Lincoln, because it may be a little bit different than what you're doing today. So today, if you're enrolled in our voluntary STD and you have, of course, the coverage from the county with MetLife, in those instances, you may be paying, or I'm sorry, you may be submitting two separate claims, one to Lincoln, one to MetLife. But come January 1st, when you're submitting for a claim with Lincoln, if you're enrolled in our voluntary short-term disability and you need to go out on a claim with us, it's kind of a one call does it alls approach. So you would go ahead and file. This first example here is for disabilities related to illness or injuries. I have a separate slide for pregnancies specifically. So if you're curious about that, hold tight and we'll get to it in just a minute. But for a voluntary STD, if you're enrolled in our voluntary STD and you have a claim to submit, you would go ahead and call in that claim to Lincoln for your illness or injury, and we would go ahead and get that claim set up for you. So your case manager, similar to what's happening today, your case manager will be assigned. They'll get your claim set up for you. They'll talk to you about how long you plan on being out, about what your disability is for. They'll work with your physicians and to get that additional information needed to support your claim. They are really actively engaged in making sure that you have the answers you need about your claim if you have any questions, and just really know what to expect next. They will also be kind of taking a look at your claim to see like if you are going to be if your claim's going to be moving into a long-term disability claim. And if that's the case, and if that's the situation, your case manager would then automatically start setting up your LTD claim for you on your behalf. So they will start setting up that long-term disability claim for you. They'll work with a new LTD case manager and get them up to speed on what's happening with your claim. They'll make sure they have medical information and documents to help support your LTD claim. And they'll do a warm handoff and introduce you to your LTD claim manager, should that be the case where your disability is still ongoing once your short-term disability ends, and if it were to roll into a long-term disability claim. So once that happens, again, that handoff happens very smoothly here internally at Lincoln. You do not need to initiate a separate long-term disability claim with us if you already have the voluntary STD. Again, this is going to be the process for new claims starting in January. So we'll kind of clarify that in a minute, but just wanted you to know that your long-term disability case manager will do that same approach, talking with you about your condition, working with your doctors to make sure we have the medical support, and they'll also work with you to determine your return to work plans and make sure that you are coordinating those with the county as you're planning on returning to work and what that looks like for you. So next is an example of what this will look like. This is again for injury or illness. If we were wanting to talk about pregnancies, just sit tight. So here's what the time frame for your voluntary STD and LTD looks like when you're enrolled in the voluntary STD with Lincoln. So here you would initiate your voluntary STD claim with Lincoln. Once your 7-day elimination period is met, your claim would be payable. But then once your long-term disability elimination has been met, it would roll into a long-term disability and would be taken over from there. In the event, however, down below, this is what it's going to look like if you don't have voluntary STD with us. If you don't have voluntary STD with us and you only have that county paid long-term disability, then that disability you would file with us here at Lincoln. And you would just go through that elimination period with no benefits payable until you've either met that 30, 60, or 90 days for your disability, and then your LTD claim would be payable. As promised, we do have the similar slide, but this is for pregnancies specifically. So very similar to what we just went through. You're going to go ahead and file that claim with Lincoln to let us know that you're pregnant and you plan on going out to take your disability. We'll verify with you when your expected delivery date is, any complications, who your doctor is, all of those good things. Your case manager will be working with you, and depending on which short-term disability plan you're enrolled in and what your elimination period is for your LTD, your case manager will determine if your disability will stay just with your short-term disability case manager, or if it's going to roll into a long-term disability. And I know this gets a little more complex, and I've got more slides coming up that will hopefully help clarify the differences. So in some instances for a pregnancy, depending on which class you're in, on the LTD side, some instances that will roll into a long-term disability claim, and other times it will not. Where this gets to be extra fun is that once if it does roll into LTD, an LTD case manager may be engaged in your pregnancy claim to some extent to make sure that you're getting your claim paid out for the duration of your recovery time from that pregnancy. And then also, you would then be eligible for the bonding leave. So the paid bonding leave is payable once your disability ends. And once you have confirmed when your disability is going to end, like let's say, for example, you have had no complications, seems to be a pretty straightforward recovery, things like that, and you know that, oh, my disability for this pregnancy is going to end, let's say on March 1st, and I want to start my bonding leave starting March 2nd. You just need to give Lincoln a call, let them know and confirm your dates for your bonding leave, and we'll get that set up for you. But again, your one call initially to set up the disability side of your absence, and they will engage a long-term disability case manager if needed. And then we just need confirmation from you when you plan on taking your bonding time. So that's just a little bit of a nuance to consider now that Lincoln is managing your LTD offered by the County of San Diego. So again, this is just a recap of what I just said. You'll be working with your STD case manager to initiate your disability claim. They may engage in a long-term LTD case manager in the event that it needs to roll over. And then once your pregnancy disability claim ends, you would be able to start up your bonding leave, and that could either be continuously or intermittently. Just need to confirm that with your Lincoln case manager, and they'll get that all set up for you. So I know this is a kind of a busy slide. I want to focus just on this top half. We've got a couple of these that will look similar. The difference between them is some of them are the first one is for those enrolled in the 3-week voluntary STD plan with a 30-day LTD elimination period. So similar to what we saw before, we have the short-term disability claim that gets set up. For anyone who's going out on a pregnancy claim, if you have a standard delivery, a vaginal delivery, no complications, the standard recovery time is 6 weeks. So that's usually what you're going to see made available to you. Again, this is assuming no complications. In the event that there are complications, that certainly can be extended in the event that you have medical support that indicates those complications and why your additional recovery time is needed. But this is for this example, we're going to just assume there's no complications. So your voluntary STD will pay for a 3-week duration of the first, not the first 3 weeks, but 3 weeks of your pregnancy claim. Remember again that 7 days is your elimination period, so no payment during those first 7 days. Then you would be able to receive your short-term disability payments for 3 weeks. And then your long-term disability benefit will kick in for after 30 days, and that will take you through to your 6th week of recovery, at which point your bonding leave, and you would could be eligible up to 8 weeks maximum for your bonding leave after your disability ends. The example down below, very similar, but just wanted to show in the event it is a C-section, those standard recovery times without complications are 8 weeks. So you would go out on your STD claim first for those 3 weeks payable after your elimination period's been met. And then once your 30-day elimination period for LTD has been met, you would be eligible to receive payment for your recovery from your C-section for the 8 weeks recovery time, at which point your bonding leave would be payable after that. So that's what it looks like if you are in the enrolled in the 3-week voluntary STD duration. The 7-week, and I think this question came up earlier, so I'm going to speak to this in a similar detail. I don't want to go through this too quickly. This is for those who are enrolled in the voluntary STD at the 7-week plan maximum. So as I said before, for a standard delivery, your recovery is 6 weeks. And you see here that in this example, a long-term disability claim is not necessary because your 7-week voluntary STD benefit will cover the entirety of your recovery time for a 6-week standard delivery, at which point, once that disability time ends, you would be eligible to take your bonding leave. It gets a little bit tricky if you are having a C-section. So the C-section, the recovery time, as I mentioned before, is 8 weeks, and that goes beyond your 7-week duration for the voluntary STD. So in the event that your time goes over and you're still out on your disability for recovering from your C-section, it could roll over into a long-term disability. So just wanting you to be aware that that could happen there for the last couple of weeks of your recovery time, but then goes into your paid family leave once that ends. Last of the pregnancy examples I wanted to show for employees who are eligible for the 90-day elimination period on the LTD, and you enroll in the voluntary STD with the 12-week plan. Your pregnancy, again, assuming no complications, would be covered by your voluntary STD time. So as soon as that claim ends for your disability, you would then be able to roll into your bonding leave after that ends. No LTD is typically engaged for those employees with the 12-week plan. And then last but not least, I also just wanted to show in the event that you are enrolled in the voluntary STD, but you just need to take time off to care for a family member, or if you're a non-birthing parent and you're going to be bonding with a new child, you are eligible to take the 8 weeks per 12-month period for any qualifying event. If you are new to the program, that qualifying event has to occur on or after January 1st. So if you plan on taking time off to bond with a newborn, the new baby needs to be born on or after January 1st to be an eligible event if you're newly enrolled. So if they're just signing up for the benefits for the first time for 2025. Again, if you are taking time off to care for a family member or for bonding, you could take those in one continuous leave or intermittently based on what's needed. And again, that initial or that qualifying event has to occur after your initial coverage effective date. I went through a lot. I'm sure there's lots of questions.
There are lots of questions. Thank you, Marianne.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to go in order here. And I think you just answered this, but for short-term disability, and this is for someone who does not pay into SDI, if you have a pre-existing condition such as pregnancy, then persons should be eligible for paid family leave under Lincoln STD. Is that correct?
So if they have a pre-existing condition and I just want to make sure I understood the question. So Katie, is it asking if they would be eligible for paid family leave even if they have a pre-existing condition under short-term disability?
Yeah, I take it as today they're not enrolled. If they enroll during open enrollment for short-term disability January 1st, are they eligible for the PFL portion?
Correct. Yep.
As
They
long as the
absolutely
birth
are.
happens January 1st or later.
Correct. Yep.
Okay, thank you. And Taylor, I think we just went over the scenarios of how a person can use long-term disability and short-term disability and paid family leave to extend. So please let me know if you have any additional questions on that. Next, we have employees who will give birth at the end of this year in December, and they're entitled to 30-day grace period for the county paid LTD. If they need the LTD after pregnancy, do they go through MetLife or Lincoln?
So it all is going to depend on that date of disability. So Lincoln's going to take over on any long-term disability claim if the original date of disability is on January 1st or later. So unfortunately, there's just going to be kind of this transition where if the date of disability falls on before January 1st, that LTD claim would be filed with MetLife. So it can get a little confusing. It's going to be similar to what's today. If you have voluntary STD with Lincoln and LTD with MetLife, you're going to continue today's process of filing two separate claims with two different carriers until January 1st. And then any new claim with a new date of disability on January 1st or later will all be with Lincoln.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And that's exactly the reason why we are moving county paid LTD over to Lincoln. So it's one carrier and a smoother transition.
Yes.
Let's see. Is LTD taxable?
Yeah, the benefit payments, or I'm sorry, any payable benefits will be taxable.
Thank you.
Because it's a company paid benefit.
Let's see. And I had a question in here, but I don't see it any longer. If I'm pregnant and I signed up for the 7-week disability leave, do I get paid for my 7-week benefit duration and then again for the 8 weeks paid family leave?
Yes.
If you're currently enrolled.
Yes.
Not newly enrolled January 1st.
Sorry. Let me back that up. So an employee can take, so let's say an employee delivers on January 1st, just for, no, that's not a good example. So if an employee is newly enrolled, and they deliver on January 1st, that would be considered a pre-existing condition because that claim would be coming in within the first 12 months for a condition that they had before before their initial eligibility. So for the short-term disability, that would be considered pre-existing condition, but they would still be eligible for the paid family leave. Now, if that employee has been enrolled this entire time, and they go out on a short-term disability, and it's no longer we're no longer talking about a pre-existing condition review, the employee would be eligible for their short-term disability claim for that either 6 or 8 week recovery time, depending on the delivery type. And then once their recovery has ended and their disability has ended, they could take the full 8 weeks for their bonding. Did that answer that question?
I think so.
Okay.
Does PFL have to start right when STD ends?
No, great question. So for bonding leave, the PFL just needs to be taken within the first 12 months of the qualifying event date. So if that is a newborn, then that would be the delivery date of the baby. If it is a adoption or foster placement, then that would be the date of the adoption or foster placement. So you have 12 months for bonding for a new child.
Thank you. For those who do pay into SDI, what is the process for filing claims for the short-term and long-term disability?
Great question. So I know these instructions are up on your benefits site, but there is a phone number you would call for short-term disability. And that's just a simple number that you would call. It's dedicated to the county. So it would prompt you to navigate to the right section for your claim submission. I don't have that number in front of me, Katie, but I think maybe you could put the link to maybe in the chat or share after the meeting where employees can go. And then to file a long-term disability, the claim form is also there for the voluntary LTD folks.
Yes, I'll put the phone number in, and Marion, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's the same phone number for all of our short and long-term disability plans. So really, yep, the beginning of any disability claim is the same.
Yeah.
Starting in 2025.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. If my wife had a baby last month and I'm just signing up for short-term disability for the first time during open enrollment, will I be able to take PFL starting January 1st, which we know is no, based on what we just discussed?
Yep. Nope. In that case, the answer would be no, because the qualifying event occurred before the benefits were in place.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to finish the rest of this, though, from employee benefits perspective. The question is, during paid family leave, are we paid directly from Lincoln? Yes, the PFL, if you're on paid family leave or short or long-term disability, those benefits all come through Lincoln. Since we aren't working, does the county stop contributions to your retirement, et cetera? And if so, are we able to buy back the time? So the answer to that is it depends. It depends on if you tell your department that you want to use any of your accruals, such as sick or vacation time. And if you do, then your contributions for benefits and retirement as a percentage will still come out of your county paid paychecks. However, benefits and retirement will not be taken out of any benefit checks that you receive from Lincoln. Marianne, this is an LTD question.
Okay.
If you're disabled based on not being able to do your own occupation, but after the 24-month mark, it's determined you can do a different type of job that pays a lot less, does the LTD benefit continue to cover the difference? Or are you considered no longer disabled and benefits cease if there is any possible job you can do, no matter how much less it pays than your county job?
That's a great question. I am not a long-term disability claims manager, and I don't want to be giving black and white answers here. So I will always say, like, it depends on the situation. So if you are currently or thinking you might be out on LTD soon and need more information, I would talk that through with your case manager, because they have the medical information and things like that. But I would say that, what they would be looking at is really something comparable during your NEOC period, based on your education and training and things like that.
Thank you, Marianne. Let's see. This is going to be for me. How do we find out which duration we signed up for, 3, 7, or 12 weeks? I don't recall being asked which one I was signing up for. Everyone has the opportunity to sign up for disability plans when they're a new hire and during open enrollment if you have any life events. All county employees can always see their current benefit summary in PeopleSoft self-service. So if you log into PeopleSoft, go to benefit details, you can look at your current benefit elections as of today. It will show you if you're enrolled in a disability plan, and if so, which one. Okay, Marianne. I first enrolled in the Lincoln short-term disability for 2023 and had coverage for 2024 and plan to continue my enrollment for the 2025. When it comes to being evaluated for pre-existing conditions, is my short-term disability effective date January 1st?
It's effective January 1st, 2023.
Sorry,
Yeah.
yes, I just said
Yep.
2023.
Yep, 2023. So if someone's been enrolled the last couple of years and they continue to be enrolled in January or in 2025, they are past the pre-existing time frame. So we're golden there. It's really just something to keep in mind for those employees who are newly enrolled. Where that pre-existing, we're going to be doing that additional evaluation for those first 12 months. But yep, that person, we'd be looking at 2023, and that's way outside of the exclusion period.
Thank you.
Yeah, great question.
For those who have employer paid benefits, can you use LTD again after PFL?
I'm not sure I understand that question. I'm guessing this is for a pregnancy related claim. And the answer would be no. So, I mean, if they could use LTD again for a different condition, they would have to meet the elimination period again, things like that. But the paid family leave for bonding specifically is really not available to an employee until their disability has ended. So whether that's under STD or LTD doesn't really matter. It's during that disability recovery time.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And what is the frequency of short-term disability and PFL payments? Do they get paid every week? Does the 3/7/12 coverage translate to 21/49/84 calendar days, or how is it computed?
I'll answer the first part of that question. So the STD and PFL are paid on a weekly basis. And it's not on a specific day of the week. It really just depends on when we pay claims upon approval. So once a claim is approved, they'll receive a payment is issued then, and then payments will be issued on a weekly basis after that, but not a specific day of the week. It just will depend on when your first claim was approved. It would be weekly based on that. I didn't quite understand the 3/7/12 part of the question.
Yeah, I think it's saying
3/7/12. Okay, sorry.
weeks versus
the 3,
days.
7, 12. So those are based on weeks. So either 3 weeks, 7 days, or 12 weeks. And those will dovetail. That's kind of a benefit term, that lingo that we use. It dovetails into your long-term disability elimination period, which is in days. So it gets a little confusing because your short-term disability duration is expressed in weeks. Your long-term disability elimination period is expressed in days, but they are meant to dovetail so there's no overlap and no gap between when a short-term disability ends and long-term disability picks up.
Thank you. How do holidays affect short-term disability and PFL coverage?
They don't.
And I will tag on to that because I experienced this. So when you're on short-term disability or paid family leave, those are just normal days that are part of your paid benefits from Lincoln. Keep in mind, county policy says you are only entitled to holiday pay if you work full days the day before and the day following a holiday. But if you're on disability, you're not going to be getting a full 8 hours because you can't receive more than 100% of your pay. So you're still getting paid for the holiday, but it's coming out of your Lincoln benefits. It's not going to be a county paid holiday. Okay.
Thanks for clarifying that.
You're welcome. Lessons learned. That is the end of the questions in chat. But do we have any additional questions? Did I miss any questions? You all have great scenarios, so I appreciate being able to share all the different scenarios.
Great.
I will put in a plug because we all know open enrollment is starting next Tuesday, right? October 1st. My best suggestion is please look at your benefit summary, particularly if you don't pay into SDI, to understand if you pay into county paid LTD, if you have a 30, 60, or 90-day waiting period. I would recommend, based on that you choose your 3, 7, or 12-week option because they are designed to work together. So for example, I see people sign up for the 12-week short-term disability, which is obviously the most expensive, but maybe they have a 30-day waiting period. So that doesn't make sense and you're wasting money on premiums because your long-term disability pays a higher percentage. So you're going to want to move over to that county paid LTD.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we have another question.
Oh, good.
And I'm sorry, Burgess, I did miss this. If I am signed up currently with a 7-week plan and then I end up having a C-section in December and I enroll myself during open enrollment in the 12-week plan, as of January, can I use the 7 weeks only or can I use the 12 weeks? And there's a couple things that go into that, right, Marianne?
Yeah, so they're currently enrolled in 7 weeks. They have a C-section in December. So the 7-week plan will be in effect on that date of the C-section.
Yes.
And so the benefits, just to keep in mind, recovery for a C-section is 8 weeks, regardless of if you're enrolled in the 7-week plan or the 12-week plan. Doesn't matter. You're only going to receive disability benefits for that 8-week recovery, whether that's through assuming that you're enrolled in the voluntary STD, excuse me. So if assuming you're enrolled in the voluntary STD, you're only going to be receiving benefits for 8 weeks of your recovery time, regardless of being enrolled in a 7-week plan or a 12-week plan. So a 12-week plan, you could sign up for that, but it's not going to pay you for 12 weeks to be out because your recovery is only 8 weeks. And because this is a December delivery, your benefit that's going to cover you from that time for the benefit that's going to be available to you will be what you're enrolled in what plan is active on that date of disability.
Perfect. Thank you, Marianne.
Yeah. I think that is it for me. And, just again, I know that your open enrollment's next week. So I really encourage, folks to take a look at that. If there are questions, Katie, that come up after today's call that I could be any help with, please let me know. I'm always here to help. And I know sometimes it could be a lot to ingest and there's a lot of moving parts. So please just let me know how I can help.
Thank you so much, Marianne. We appreciate your time. All right, Nidra, I think that we can go ahead and end this session with no additional questions. If anyone has any late questions, please feel free to email us at dhrbenefits.fgg@sdcounty. I will put that in the chat for you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.